Today I have a great pleasure to talk with Joanne, who is based in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
Joanne, thank you so much for joining our community personal branding program. And I'm very curious to learn more about you. And as you know, we all want to know what is your story and how did you become who you are today?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. First of all, it's an incredible opportunity. It's always such a pleasure to be able to share myself with people who might benefit from my experiences. And that's always something that I'm very grateful for. So thank you for inviting me. By the way, what you're doing is amazing. I think, there's so many people who try and build communities when what you're doing is truly, truly terrific. So kudos to you and thank you. Well, let's see. The question is, what is my story? I come from a very simple family. I'm Asian, as you can tell. I now live in Melbourne, but I am originally from Singapore. So I was born and bred, educated. I grew up in Singapore. I am 45 this year, but I spent 38 years of my life in Singapore. So I lived and, I lived there, got married there, had kid there. And now my son and my partner is here with me in Melbourne. So we have lived here for 4.5 years. But my story, I guess, I like to think of it as it's more of a life story. So it really started off as, I came from a very humble family. My parents are both hardworking. My mom is a very hardworking housewife. She's never worked a day in her life. My dad is he's the sole breadwinner for as long as I remember, until he fell sick and he couldn't work anymore. And I grew up in a simple family. I've got a young brother who's 3 years younger. And, I've always been taught that the way to get on with life is to study hard, find a job, and then find a man, find a good man, get married, start a family, and repeat that cycle. Okay, so it's a very, no different from anyone else. My parents were uneducated, but I was very lucky that they believed in education for me. So I just kept pushing, and I was a little bit academically inclined, so I did fairly well in school. And my highest degree is a master's degree, which I did part-time as I was working, and I did the degree at night. So, my career has been really blessed as well. I've always worked with big companies in marketing and communications. I've always enjoyed talking for a living and, truly had a blessed career. So, the first 40 years of my life, I like to look at is pretty much not very exciting, but from the outside, some people would say I have a good life, and I would agree, even though I've had one failed marriage. This is my second marriage, and right now it's looking okay, but I think there are several watershed moments in my life, and the most important one would be a few years ago. I think it would be 3 years ago in Melbourne, when I was involved in a car accident, and I had my son in the car with me, and I almost lost him. And, I won't fill you with all the details, but when I look back at what happened, I realized that I most likely, if you just look at the state of the car, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. I was the driver. I fell asleep at the wheel. I was so exhausted. And very thankfully, my son has fully recovered, and he's now, a thriving 7-year-old, very, 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 very grateful for that. And I've been on a very interesting self-discovery journey in the last few years since the car accident. And I think that's where I would draw the line as far as my story is concerned. I think the first 40 years of my life, I lived a life that is, on the outside, it looked great. Everyone thought I was having a good life, the life that I wanted. And I thought that too, to be honest. Then I realized after the car accident that it wasn't exactly the life that I thought I wanted. And I know that's a big thing to say. I know it's a big thing to say. The thing about the car accident is that it forced me to stop my life the way I know it. So everything that I used to do in my life, I had to stop completely. so that I could focus on taking care of my son and nursing him back to health. And when he improved, there was no other way but to turn the lenses and face myself, and that was the biggest moment of my life when I begin to discover what it means to be me. And that is truly, the first 40 years of my life, I've learned a lot from it. I made a lot of mistakes, met a lot of wonderful people who taught me directly, indirectly, through work, through friendships, through a variety of avenues, and I've learned so much. And then now I'm on this journey, just beginning to be on this journey. And I think it will be a lifelong journey now that I'm aware of it, of reinventing who I am.
I'm very happy that you are here with us and that your son is okay. Yes. I would like to ask you, I'm curious, so you said you had a great career in corporate world, and then accident happened. Mm. And then how was that period of time after the accident happened, when you actually had time to rethink about your life again, yourself, and how that impacts on your current you and your future you?
That's a great question. Current you and future you. I think that the accident happened 3 years ago. And in the last 2.5 years or so, I turned the lenses towards myself. And I asked myself the single question. I was obsessed with this question. Why am I kept alive? I feel like I've got a second chance at life. And I lived my life in a particular way in the first 40 years of my life. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of what I achieved. I'm very proud of who I was, who I became, who I was for other people. But I realized that I never really asked myself, what do I want? I never stopped and asked, what does Joanne want? I'm always doing what makes sense, what I think other people want me to do, what I think should be the right thing. And, this whole idea of what is right to do or what is wrong, right and wrong, is very arbitrary. It's very relative. It's also social conditioning as well. And what I ended up doing in the last few years, and I spent a lot of time, and I'm still going through that process, but it was very intense, very, very intense in the last few years when I was looking inward. So it's an inward journey where I questioned everything. I questioned, who am I? What am I doing with my life? What's my purpose? And yes, I know these are big questions, and I'm still on the journey of defining the answers that make sense to me. And I'm not out, and I realize that the answers are not fixed. They are actually going to continue to evolve with my life experiences, with the people I meet, with the things I end up choosing to do. And a lot of it's really dependent on the choices I make in my life as well. But it has been very, very intense, and there are questions about, there are big questions like, who am I? And the big part of that process for me is beginning to appreciate that there is no one fixed answer. That actually it is a creative process, that it is something that I have a say in. I can say I am like that, or I am like that. I can choose to be loving. I can choose to be a businesswoman. I can choose to be a mother. I can choose to be a friend. I can choose to be any way or do anything I want. And that's very liberating. At the same time, this freedom means there is responsibility. Yes? So there is something that I'm learning to understand and to appreciate. And it gives me a completely whole different way of appreciating life. It's not like my life needs to be a certain way. And that was very much how I lived my first 40 years of my life, where I felt like I need to check certain boxes. I need to, by this age, I should be doing this. By this age, I should be a mom. By this age, I should be married, things like that. But now I don't have that arbitrary list anymore. I pretty much live life in the moment, And I want to be able to appreciate what's in the moment, whether it's good or bad. And I think that's what life is about. For me, I know this is cliche, but having gone through the car accident and being a survivor of a car crash, I really have a whole different appreciation of what it means when we say life is a gift. It truly is, and as a result of that, it has given me an appreciation about a lot of things in my life that I never saw. For example, when negative things happen to you, or when you have negative experiences, would be the more accurate way to put it, I would say, then how do you respond? It is such an important moment where you can choose to be unhappy about it or happy about it. I know I'm oversimplifying this, but I'm also mindful of time, so I wanted to keep it really straightforward. I guess what I'm trying to say is I really learned a lot from the car accident. It was traumatic. It was a very difficult time for us as a family, as an individual, as a mom. I lived through the guilt. I got to deal with that. But I learned so much from it as well. And that's one of the things that I learned in the last few years, that there is always good in everything if you look. If you give yourself permission to look for the good, you will always find something. Give yourself the permission, the generosity to experience life, the full breadth of it. I know sometimes the negative experiences leave us so negatively impacted, we wish it never happened. But you know what? Without the dark part of life showing up, you will never appreciate the light. And that's where I found myself. When I went really, really deep and really, really dark inwards, I found who I am authentically, that I can be proud of, that I know that I would love regardless. And that's a big part of me too, learning to love myself in the last few years, because I realized I never really know what that means. In the initial years, the first 40 years of my life. So if I'm lucky to live another 40 years, hopefully I'll make it up to myself.
And Joanne, like you said, like before the accident, you had a life which you are proud of. So you get your checkpoint, you did everything which was society, parents, and all people who were surrounding you expecting from you to do, or you thought they're expecting to do something. And then after the accident, you realize this is the second chance how I'm gonna live my life, and you discover that you have control of your actions and experience you want to have. But I'm curious, after that kind of experience, when you actually face that and you appreciate life more because of that, what is the reason for you and purpose to be alive again, and what kind of impact you want to have in order to be somebody who you are?
Fantastic question. That's so good. Yeah, good. I've been a communications professional for 20 years. And even when I became an entrepreneur, I started my own business. Communications is a big part of it. Talking to people, connecting with people. And I've often been told that I am gifted that way, but I've never kind of thought much about it. I just thought, well, it's a job I do, I happen to like it. I happen to do quite well in it. It comes quite naturally to me. I never thought of turning it into something that is, every one of us have ego. And, there are times when the ego says, yeah, you're so good at that. You should go be that. You should do that, right? I never felt like I wanted to be a public speaker or any of that sort. I've had an international speaker, somebody who's very, very recognized, but I wouldn't drop names here, who actually gave me personal feedback to say that, Jo, you should become a professional speaker. You should be an inspiration to all the people in this world. You should take the global stage and go speak. And I'm like, nah, I don't think I can do that, And I said that I'm happy to just, be in my circle and then make a difference where I can. But, since the car crash, that's the question, the other question that I ask, that what is the purpose of me being kept alive? It's like, I realize I don't really have a control over whether I'm living or dead, to be honest. I don't mean to be morbid, right? I mean, think about this. I fell asleep at the wheel. Did I choose to sleep? No. Did I choose to fall asleep so that I could kill myself and my son? No. it happened. I didn't choose it. It happened. So that in itself, I really feel that life is so unpredictable. It could be taken, this moment when we're breathing is so beautiful in its own, that we can breathe, that we are alive. So for me, I actually see that this is what I would like to do. I went through all of this for a reason. I believe part of that reason, or from where I am, what I can see, what I feel that part of why I went through all of that is so that I can tell the story to help other people. And I realized then that I have a voice. Mm-hmm. And it is this voice that I believe is what I am meant to give to the world. And I mean this with all humility and love to the world. It's not, I don't say it like, I am a public speaker. I just happen to be able to. I happen to be able to speak to people. I can stand in front of rooms. And, I've spoken to many people on the stage, and I have felt that that is where I belong. But I just never had the courage to take that on and say, you know what, this is what I want to do. And this is what I want to do now. My son is 7-year-old. I was a housewife for the last 4 years. So I took a break from my corporate career so that I could focus on him and the family. We moved to Australia to start a new life. And then now, when my son is 7-year-old and I'm in the process of reinventing myself, I go, so what do I do with you? and jokes aside, I feel that part of why I'm kept alive is so that I can tell my story and to help more people. So I don't have a product. If there is a product, this is it. I am it. I'm happy to go anywhere in the world to share my story. I want to be able to empower women in particular to really know that we are amazing. I was just saying this to a male friend a couple of days ago, and he agreed, by the way, that women, that God, the universe, whoever gave us life, chose women to be the bearer of life, that we become mothers, that we are the ones who give birth to life, because we are able. We have this amazing gift to take on the world on our shoulders and go out there and do more with it. So I feel that everything that I've gone through is so that I can give back. And the only way I know as of now of how to give back is to keep telling my story. And I really want to appreciate, again, Ed, for this opportunity where I get to share my story. I know I'm all over the place and it's not as, polished, but trust me. And there's so many people I know who have heard my story who tell me, thank you for sharing, because I've been suffering in silence. I didn't know who I could talk to. I didn't know if I should talk to anyone. And there's so many people like that. And I realize it's so important, if we can, to share our story. Everyone is struggling with something.
I mean, that's exactly the purpose of this platform, to share authentic stories about amazing women and people like you, to share their gift, to inspire other people and to bring the light in their lives. I'm just curious, how do you want to be remembered?
It's a great question. And it is a question that, I think more people should consider, really, and I used to think, I want to be remembered by what I have achieved. Then after the car accident, I begin to define my answer to that question in more relative terms, how I have been. I want to define my life as the difference I have made in this world to the people in my world. And it is something that I'm still working on, but I'd like to be remembered as somebody who has been kind, generous, loving, and I made a difference in some way, positive difference, hopefully. Yeah, and whether that comes with being having made a difference in helping women to build their own business, or helping people to find their authentic voice, finding the courage to speak up, finding the courage to be vulnerable in difficult times, finding the ability and recognizing that we are all powerful beyond our own recognition. I think that's how I like to be remembered as somebody who was a space for the best version of people to show up, because that's all I really want to be. You know, people, all of us, tissue moment, all of us want to be happy. I'm sure nobody wants to be sad, you know, by choice. If you have a choice, if you won't choose to be sad. And you know what? That is truly something that comes from within. It's an inside job. You know, so often I've looked to external sources, anything external of me to give me that sense of happiness, of sense of worth, the sense of validity. But I truly now begin to experience. I wouldn't say that I have totally given up the old way of existence, because I've been that way for so long. You know, and that's why change is so difficult, because we resist change. But I am beginning to appreciate that I am far more powerful than I ever gave myself credit for. And that's not just me. That's not me. I'm saying this for everyone who gets a chance to hear this. And this is my gift to all of you. You are more powerful than you ever imagined yourself to be. I never thought I could survive that car accident the way I did, with the grace and with the elegance of life that came to me. People always ask me, how did you survive that period? You know, did you feel guilt? You know, as a mom, I put my son in a hospital bed. You know, we were living in a hospital for a whole month, you know, and the first 48 hours of his time in the hospital, we didn't know if he was going to survive. So there were a lot of things that I did go through. And what I got out of that is I am stronger than I ever thought I could be. And every one of us has that capacity in us. It has that strength in us. And a lot of it is recognizing it. It is allowing ourselves to really believe that we can be anyone we want to be. We can be anything we want to be. I know a lot of this sounds like quotable quotes and cliches, but I'm speaking from my lived experience now. And I guess, if anything, what I'm saying is, you know, all these things that you may have read somewhere or heard someone or seen a quote or, you know, whatever, I'm giving you validation through my words, through my own experience in life, that it is true. You can give yourself the permission to go rediscover who you are. And really, you know, if you don't like what you see, it's okay. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, but it does mean that now that you are aware, you can be anything you want to be. You can go create that person that you want to be. You can go create that life that you want. You know, and all of it is an inside job. It starts with you. So loving yourself is truly one of the most amazing experience that I am giving myself permission to experience right now in my life, and learning how to extend that to the people in my life, and sharing this message is incredibly important to me. You know, as you can tell, you know, there's still a lot of emotional charge whenever I talk about the car accident, but I feel this is why I can now talk about it, because it's not about me anymore. My story is, I lived through it so that I could use it to empower more people. It's not mine. It's yours.
Our story. Thank you for sharing your powerful story, and thank you for giving yourself permission to be who you are. Thank you for sharing your gift.
Thank you, Ed. You are very, very generous. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. You take care. Talk soon.